chips away over the CT smoke. Window no scope from Senzu!
Late last year, the Mongols told all CS fans that for their team, the sky is the limit. Just a few months into 2025, and they might already need to raise that bar because these boys keep one-upping themselves. But how does a team go from obscurity and getting called noobs by Cadian to not only a top 5 team in the world, but one that's funded to play by their own government? The Mongols as a CS organization has been around for a decade now and have managed to find success within the Asian scene. However, the same can't be said for their results on the international stage, which is honestly the case for most Asian CS teams throughout the history of the game, despite being dominant in pretty much every other major esports, including Valorant. Now, there are a lot of reasons as to why this is the case, but point is, CSGO just wasn't popular in the region for a very, very long time. Although it has seen a pretty substantial boost thanks in part to the skin economy, it's still not on the same level as Europe or the Americas. That's not to say that there haven't been notable players and teams from the region, and thanks to Mongols, Asian CS now has a very, very bright future. This story begins in April of 2023. Leading up to the final CSGO major, the core of Mongolian team IHC would leave to revive the Mongols banner, which had been mostly defunct since the latter half of 2022. They do this with no org representation, but are under the veteran leadership of Coach Mara, who spent many years playing for their CSGO team. Right out of the gate, the Mongols managed to make it through the Asian RMR and qualify for the Blast Paris major. Heading into the final big event of CSGO's life, the Mongols would make a big change, signing Opper 910 and rifler Mizinho, who at the time of signing was just 15 years old. The new additions would immediately find some international success, with Mongols managing to make it through the group stages after beating both Furia and Into the Breach. Unfortunately, their run would end after being knocked out by Gamer Legion, not before falling to Heroic, a now infamous match that saw Cadian screaming across the room at Mongols, specifically their 16-year-old birthday boy, Mizinho.
Look how he's looking over, he's 60 years old! He's trying to save and he's getting shouted at by a 40-year-old!
Please.
Did you see how he looked over? He's used to playing online from Mongolia, probably in his parents' house against some random...
Heroic.
Not everyone was thrilled with Cadian for that outburst, especially given the context of the Mongols as a team in that situation. But Cadian later suggested that it was in retaliation to their BM playstyle, disrespecting smokes, flashes, and whatnot. Regardless, it doesn't really seem to matter much now, because as we all know, things were about to change in a big way for CS, and the Mongols would get their revenge. As we transitioned to CS2 towards the end of 2023, the Mongols would make one more change to their team, adding in the final puzzle piece, 17-year-old Senzu. Things wouldn't immediately turn around for the team, and there's a pretty apparent reason as to why that might have been. This team is infantile, the youngest to ever compete at the top level of CS2. As a result, there was bound to be some learning curves for these boys, especially against the much more experienced competition they were up against internationally. And that likely contributed to their lacking results at Katowice, the Copenhagen Major, and Pro League. But, unlike Cadian, at least they were able to make it to the first ever CS2 Major, a fact that they were more than happy to remind him of. And the Mongols were able to still impressively win some of their matchups, making it through qualifiers, and mostly dominating back home. So they were steadily rising through the power rankings to become a top 20 team in the world. They were continuously grinding, and if Donk was any indication, their age would soon prove to be an X factor and not a hindrance. It started small at MESA Nomadic Masters, where Mongols would go undefeated, taking down Bleed Esports in the grand finals to win their first international event on Mongolian soil to boot.
But Mongols hear the chants, they hear their destiny. They know it. Not the only man that separates Mongols will be your Misa Nomadic Monsters!
That massive win was immediately followed up by Yala Compass. And while not all the big hitters were in attendance, it was still a tier 1 event, with some fierce contenders that Mongols had to get through. And they topped their group, defeating ENCE, Heroic, and NiP to make it all the way to the semifinals, finally taking down Astralis and then NiP again to win their first ever S-tier international event along with an MVP for 910's incredible performance.
Zenio should be able to take this one. He's trying to take the aggro and does a lot more than that. Great shots with the AK-47. It's going to be the Mongols 5-4 here.
Ooh, the sequence continues. Down, dealing damage, but 910 with a flick back up. 1v2 comes off the bomb. Ready for the main hit. Shuts down device. Can he pick this up? Paranoid about the They swing out onto the site. Alex with the AK, good for the first shooting gallery. Big man blitz.
Unfortunately, Mongols did hit a bit of a slump after this event, missing playoffs for the Esports World Cup, Cologne Pro League, and IEM Rio. Honestly, not the results you'd like to see from a team that just rocketed through the global rankings. But once again, these results did not come without some silver lining. Chiefly at Pro League when the Mongols 2-0'd Coull while only dropping a single round. And at Cologne where they were able to get revenge on Team Spirit with a 2-0 victory when it seemed like no one else can. That sent Donk down to the lower bracket and eventually out of the tournament.
All this kind of shit, he's going to peek behind it.
Anyone from smaller regions.
Yep.
Wow, he finds him and the mid kill. This is the
That's a
gun round
mistake.
for
That's a
Spirit.
mistake, and it's been punished.
It's one thing to make this upset happen. It's another if they embarrass them. Donk trying to bring it back. A compromise from behind. Behind the obelisk onto the SMG.
Come on.
Still got a good chance, but that takes Dakin down.
On top of that, the Mongols were also going to end the year in a pretty major way. In November, Mongols attended Thunderpick, an event not too dissimilar from Yala Compass. But this time, they were staring at a $500,000 grand prize. The Mongols went undefeated, managing to take down Heroic once again, claiming their trophy, 500 grand, and the number 5 spot in Valve's global ranking.
But we know where this is going. Mongols v Heroic, and it's Heroic who get Ulan battered on Mirage. The venue is filled with the thunderous gallops of the Mongolians. No one can stop them.
And since then, the Mongols have continued to perform well on the international stage against increasingly more difficult opponents. Despite getting knocked out of the first round of playoffs at Shanghai, they made history as the first Asian team to make it that far at a major. And it felt like they had the entire community rooting for them. As a result, the Mongols deservingly earned a few nominations at the HLTV Awards and have not slowed down into 2025. After bowing out of Blast Bounty to focus on team health, the Mongols went on an incredible run at Katowice all the way to the semi-finals.
Because Splits has got him booked, gets him with the tap. Wallbang already puts Ricardio on notice. They're spamming him from every direction. Joseph does damage, but Techno does more. Ricardio low. He's dead now on the floor. Only Woxic can save them. Or the Mongols have secured themselves the semi-final. It's theirs. 2-0.
They fell 2-0 to Vitality, but this did mark yet another bit of history, as this was the furthest an Asian team had gone in an equivalent event since Tyloo back in 2019, solidifying the Mongols as arguably the greatest Asian CS team of all time. And might I add, they did all this while their entry was playing with a broken hand. Now, we're still early in the year, but as I said, these boys are not taking their foot off the gas. The future only seems to be getting more and more hopeful. Aside from making another playoff appearance at Cluj-Napoca, the Mongols were recently in the news for something much bigger than Counter-Strike. On February 28th, the Minister of Culture, Sports, Tourism, and Youth of Mongolia recognized the Mongols as official athletes for the country's national team. With this announcement comes the Mongolian government's commitment to expanding and supporting esports in their region. And on top of getting official government passports and further support for international travel, the Mongols are now receiving salaries from the government to compete. That's right, the Mongolian government is paying these boys to play Counter-Strike. Now, we have seen things like this before in the past. The Danish government has funded Counter-Strike plenty over the years, and the Korean government has been doing just this in all esports since at least the year 2000. But this is a huge step for the region, violent first-person shooters, and the prosperity of Counter-Strike as a whole. And this likely wouldn't have been possible if the Mongols were just some middling tier 2 team and not a top 5 contender in the world, as this funding is directly tied to their historic achievements for Asian CS and the hopes that this will continue to grow the game in Mongolia. But how? How the f did these guys get so good? Well, in my eyes, there are a few obvious reasons. Number one, they have a lot of natural talent on their team that just can't be denied. Obviously, 910, Blitz, and Senzu have put up some impressive individual performances, but the entire roster is in the positive right now and carries their own weight. And that brings me to reason number two. They play with confidence. Despite their young age, they play each tournament knowing they deserve to be there. They talk their shit, play their style, and have fun doing it. And as CS2 continues to feel like a young man's game, the youthfulness of this team might be their greatest attribute. Reason number three is less sexy, but they are one of the better pistol round teams right now, sitting at roughly 60% over the last 6 months. And their conversion rate is also stellar. And these skills are what leads to teams winning maps. There are surely plenty of other reasons as to why this team is doing as well as they are, but the point is that it's very impressive. Mongolia is second to only Greenland as the least densely populated country in the entire world. Next to that, as stated many times, they have operated in a region that has historically struggled internationally, but their presence in the server and on Twitter more than make up for it. As a result, they have put Asia back on the map in terms of Counter-Strike, and it only seems inevitable that their success and results at big events continues. I will say, I'll just quickly say, the only thing I didn't know was how much like Mongolia still like invoked, you know, ancient Mongolia and like their warriors. Specifically in that, the photo of them sitting down with the Minister of Culture and just the photo of Genghis Khan in the background. I didn't know they rolled like that still, to be honest with you.